Hey everybody, it's Jake Milstein at Contrast Security. I'm joined by Jeff Williams, founder of Contrast Security. Jeff, one of the big pieces of news out in the last month is OpenAI is now getting into AppSec. They are releasing a tool called Aardvark. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's something that everybody would love to have work. Like you think of AI as being smart, and it seems logical to ask it like, "Hey, could you find vulnerabilities for me in my code base?" But at the end of the day, I don't think this really is going to work. And there's a few reasons why. Uh, First of all, there's no way an AI can take in the whole code base all at once. There's a context window problem. So if you've got an application that's like, a million lines of code, there's no way the AI can see all that. And unfortunately, a lot of vulnerabilities are distributed across the code in a way that makes it really hard to identify them if you can't see the whole thing. That's problem one. Problem two is AI is slow. Like when you do a security review of something, you've got hundreds of different kinds of vulnerabilities that you're looking for. And you have to check for each of them on all of the routes in the application. There could be hundreds or thousands of routes. And so like the combinatorics don't work. If that was like thousands of prompts you had to send, think how long that would take for AI to process. And so you couldn't put it in a pipeline. You couldn't really use it in the way that you want to use security tools. And then the last problem is that it's going to be really expensive. It's going to be tons and tons of tokens to do that analysis. If you're spending a lot of context and sending a lot of prompts, it's just going to be expensive. And so if you want kind of slow, crappy, expensive static analysis, then you could use an AI engine to do it. And I'm sure people will try it and say, "Oh, I found something, so it must be working." But I think if you put it up against any kind of benchmark, it's going to do a really terrible job.
People are already doing this, right? People are already taking their code or, security. I was just at a conference and one of the security folks who doesn't know much about code was taking his developer's code and just putting it into ChatGPT and saying, what are the vulnerabilities? Since people are already doing that, it sort of makes sense that OpenAI said, all right, well, I'm going to make this into a product and it's working for them. What you're
Sure.
saying is it just can't work at scale.
Yeah, I don't see this as replacing even something that I've been very critical of in the past, which is SAST. SAST at least is able to digest the whole code base and run rules against the whole code base. And it makes a lot of mistakes, but at least you're getting the whole picture. So, I just don't, I see this as being, it is SAST, right? You're using a different engine to do the static analysis of an application. And, you're just using one that's slow and bad and non-deterministic, by the way. Like it's not going to find the same things the next time you run it.
Are there use cases where it would make sense for folks to use it?
Well, I think there are actually, there's some kinds of analysis that I don't think we've mastered with static analysis. And it's things like business logic, uh, even things like direct object references and so on. They're difficult. If the code has to, if you have to understand what the code is trying to do in order to identify the flaw, and that's kind of the definition of business logic flaws, then AI might have a chance of doing that better than a traditional tool because it can help to interpret all the context that's in the code, like comments and variable names and things like that, and make sense of them, where static really couldn't do that. There's no algorithm for doing that.
So OpenAI Aardvark as the AppSec killer, neat headline, probably not true.
For really, really simple problems, static is obviously the winner. Like it's so fast and so accurate. For medium complexity problems, I think you want to see the code run, and that's where IAST or interactive application security testing, ADR, that's where those kinds of things come into play. And then for really hard problems like malicious code and business logic kinds of vulnerabilities, I think that's where AI could contribute to the mix, but it's not going to work as a replacement for any of those other things.